Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bro Dads Podcast. I'm Skylar,
I'm Malachi.
and this is episode 4. I think we took a week off because we were kind of is it 1 week?
Yep, 1 week.
1 week. Yeah, we were just kind of doing some reconfiguring of the show, what we were wanting to get out of it, how we wanted to change it, and just to better reach our audience and provide topics and discussions that we hoped would reach them better, really.
Yeah, basically just trying to shorten it up, narrow it down, be specific, and then later on we can try to go back to what we're doing.
Right. So, I guess, how was your weekend? Or how's your week been?
More projects, really. We had baby goats that showed up unexpectedly in all of my professional goating? Is that
sure. Goat.
whatever? Yeah, which is 0, absolutely.
It's herding ability.
Yeah, I wasn't being a very good shepherd. So I thought they were coming a month after, like into October, and they came early September.
Oh.
I went out to go do my chores, and there's just 2 babies walking around, and like, oh no,
Yeah.
what do I do? So it's kind of a frantic rush of everything. So I think it's like I'm getting on top of it. I'm milking goats.
Which was crazy because the day before we'd also been there and you had like felt the musculature of the one and you're like, oh, it says it's not ready. And then you're like, bam, next day.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it had a goat.
It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're both first-time mom goats. And I was just like, what in the world is going on? So, yeah, I still had the male in there, so I had to pull him out. And I had one fenced-in area, so I'm like in and out, and goats just all over the yard.
Yeah.
Like, I
think
have
that's
no clue. Was not prepared.
just like anything, having a baby for the first time, it's very unpredictable.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was all over the place. I built a goat milking stand in an hour, just in the morning, just so I could milk a goat. I don't know. It's just this whole. I have no clue what I'm doing. So, on top of my already busy life, I was like, oh, having goats will be easy. Do some research.
Yeah. If you want goats.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess that's probably the craziest thing.
Right on.
What about you?
Not a whole lot. Yesterday, me and Sawyer, though, we were talking about.
This isn't going to be like.
No, it's not going to be a
bedroom
weird
situation.
One. No, not one of those again. We were. So we have family going to Europe, right? And before they left, I hugged one of them. Was like, "Don't make me come over there and go all Liam Neeson on some people," right? And then so me and Sawyer were joking about that, and I was like, "What if we made how like Spaceballs makes a spoof of Star Wars, and then you have like Get Smart with Steve Carell makes a spoof on just kind of like secret agent stuff." We were like, "What if we made a movie where something they're like abducted or something, but it's like a spoof movie on Taken, and like the guy is like a common everyday person, so he shows up and gets there and ends up catching one of these people who's obviously part of the group, and he goes into like a restaurant, and he's like, who here can translate, and someone's like, I can, and then like he gets him and he's like, you know sign language? Like what? Like, how did I get the one guy that can't translate the language that I need him to translate? And so like gets rid of that guy and goes on and ends up catching the mastermind guy, and then the guy does sign language, and so he's sitting there like having to do like Google Translate on his phone, like typing it out, and then hands it to the guy, and they're like communicating through swapping a phone back and forth.
Oh
like that could be really funny if we did that. But anyway, so yeah, that was our stupid discussion. But
yeah, I would say so.
So anyway, Well, we're going to dive right into it, really, because this is part of the new layout. And really, we're just kind of talking about different headlines that are going on, some of which you've heard, and it's kind of some reactional stuff. Some of it's for Malachi, just because he hasn't heard or seen any of this, so we're just going to kind of get his reaction. But also, if you're not staying up to speed with some of the stuff going on currently, then it'll get you guys caught up. But first, I figured I might as well mention, because everyone is talking about it right now, the government shutdown, right? I'm sure you've
Yep.
potential government shutdown.
Yeah, potential.
Um,
Which COVID was only supposed to be 2 weeks.
2 weeks, right?
So...
Yeah. I mean, we'll just see. But the thing that I always find hilarious is this happens every year. Every single time they have to put out a spending bill or raise the debt limit, that's all the talk is. We're going to face a shutdown. We're going to default on our debt ceiling or debt limit, blah, 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 right? That's all they talk about. And then either one, there's like a temporary shutdown or a partial shutdown, right? And panic ensues and everybody, blah, the news and all that. And it's like, well, the world keeps turning. We keep going to work and paying in our taxes and nothing changes, right? At least for most people. Obviously, if you're on certain government assistance, you might be slightly affected. But what's dumb is they never talk about the fact that they'll be like, millions of people are going to lose benefits or pay or whatever. I'm like, no, you just get back pay. Like, yeah, that might suck depending on how long a shutdown is. I'm not going to discredit that. Like, oh yeah, that sucks. If you're Social Security or whatever, depending on what gets cut, you can't make your monthly payment kind of thing if you're on Social Security. But at the same time, if you're talking to your landlord and you're making those payments anyway, just be like, look, I'm on this, and I'm just waiting for them to get their heads out of their butt, and so I can get my money. You get back pay. It's not like, oh no, I just lost out on $2,000 during this entire shutdown. It's like, no, you get it. It just comes in one bigger lump sum once the back pay catches up. Yeah. So that's the dumb part that they don't talk about. And then two, the biggest thing that annoys me about it is I'm like, every time that they pass that new debt ceiling or authorize the spending bill, whatever, every single time they do it in the dead of night. We're all sleeping, and then we wake up and you start reading it and be like, I've been screwed again, like in some way, shape, or form. And if you didn't know this, though, regardless if our government shuts down and because they're trying to figure things out, we will continue to ensure that we pay salaries for people in Ukraine. They're not, I mean, as far as I know, those people in Ukraine are not paying our taxes.
No.
But we're going to pay their salaries. So, because there was a new 60 Minutes report that came out and found that a lot of the money we're sending over there, too, it's not just for the war effort. Like, we're paying, like, first responders and kind of some everyday people's regular salaries. Like, and again, I'm like, why am I paying for someone's everyday job when they're not paying into my taxes?
Because our government is bankrupt and we are debtors to all other countries?
Apparently so.
Yep. Do some research. You'll find it. Anyway.
Okay, next thing. Did you hear about the F-35 that we lost?
That just disappears. You mean to tell me that my phone, which I'm using right now, I'm looking for it, but I'm using it right now, has a spot where I can where's my phone? Ding,
yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. How do you not put... How does the government not have a air tag in there to track a $100 million jet? Are you kidding me? So there's a few theories out there, and one of them actually does sound legit to me because I remember it being a thing. And well, let's
the show Manifest, where that plane just disappears and then they come back 5 years later.
Well, no, not that one. There's been a few things with the Bermuda Triangle and that thing.
No.
But
I just thought the show was going to become real.
I can't spell.
He's doing some intensive research right now.
So while I'm doing this, go to that video. This is supposedly the guy that saw the airplane go down. So you're going to go to 40 seconds. We're going to play from 40 seconds in the video to 55. We're going to get Malachi's reaction to this. He hasn't seen this. Exactly 40 seconds, or 39 is fine. We're gonna This is the reaction. Yeah, throw it up on the screen. This is the guy that saw the plane go down. So if you haven't seen this or heard this, if you're just listening, this is his reaction, and supposedly the only person that they found that saw the plane go down. So go ahead.
In the bathroom getting the shave, and I heard a screeching, something between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this? And I heard a boom, and my whole house shook.
White says he didn't realize it was a plane at the time, so he didn't call anybody.
That was it.
That's it?
That's it. that was that guy's reaction to
what in the world?
So
Yannick is wearing
yeah. So that guy's gone viral. If you hadn't seen that before, everyone's posting him, using him in memes all over the place. It's really funny. But so there's one of the theories out there though, and this one seems legit to me because
one here?
No, not this one. One of the conspiracy theories is, like this pilot had ejected and like he says, I put it on autopilot, right? And one of the theories is that Chinese or Russians hacked that jet and flew it. They're saying Cuba, right? I mean, makes sense. I guess I don't care where it went. But they're claiming that they hacked it and flew it to, right? Well, I just Googled concerns over Chinese can hack our weapon systems, right? And so if you just Google that, concerns over Chinese can hack our weapon systems. Washington Post, this is in 2013, May 27th of 2013, there was a confidential report lists U.S. weapon systems that are designed, or have been compromised by Chinese hackers, right? And obviously we get a lot of components, and so I remember hearing it on the radio a while back, a couple of years ago, but because of how we had, obviously you would think everything that goes into these crazy weapon systems, it's very regulated as far as where parts and everything are coming from. But I remember them talking about concerns of the manufacturer claims that they were being made in this facility, but later found out that some of the parts were being manufactured in this facility, which was a Chinese-owned company or something, right? And so they had talked a lot about that, and there was recalls and trying to go through all these weapon systems that could have been compromised and blah 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 blah. So anyway, that was the most, I just laughed because honestly, them saying it went down, I'm I honestly don't believe it, because once they found it, this entire area is gated off. You can't even get news choppers in there to get a good visual and be yep, that's it. It's there's nothing left of the wreckage. Besides,
but there is wreckage.
There's wreckage. That video did show some, and obviously a person can go look this up. They'll claim there's wreckage, but it's nothing. There's nothing to it. It's just almost incinerated.
Interesting.
Yeah. Let's see. Moving on. I guess, like I said, a couple things there that were interesting. Don't do that. Did you hear about this? So I think it was early last week, or over the weekend, or late last week, Thursday, Friday of last week. Anyway, Canadian Parliament gave a standing ovation to a Nazi war criminal.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yes. So if you go to our page there, you can pull up. I have the link.
Right here.
Yes, right there. And you can pull that up and just show the pictures. So this is from the Associated Press. And obviously you can Google it and get your news source from wherever. But because of the backlash to this and them finding this out, the Speaker of Canada's House of Commons apologized Sunday for recognizing a man who fought for a Nazi military unit during World War II, specifically the SS. Right? So worst of the worst, rounded up Jews and everything there. But what's hilarious is that now, if you want to throw that up on screen so people can see this here, this was the guy that was the former SS officer. If you go to the next picture, right? Zelensky was there, and he partook in giving a standing ovation for this guy, right? Now, what's interesting is because Russia's claim for going into Europe or into Ukraine, one of their claims was, well, we were fighting this, there was neo-Nazis hiding in Ukraine, and part of it was we were going after these people, and they're like, no. And there has been found, you can do some Googling, but there were Nazi groups within Ukraine, and have been fighting and everything. But it's hilarious because you're like, they're like, oh, we didn't know, right? We apologize. We messed up. We didn't know or realize that this guy was a former Nazi. I'm like, it's a joke. You're lying to us, blatantly. I'm like, you didn't do a simple, just do a simple Google search or Facebook search to find out that this guy was a former Nazi. I'm like, they're treating us like idiots, right? And then even oh, whoops, our bad. Be like, no, you guys know it's part of your stupid agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just hilarious. So anyway, that was wanted to throw that out there as some information in case you hadn't
So this is kind of how I feel with government and news and all this kind of stuff. In a simplified analogy, I would basically say it's like if you worked for Chase Bank, humongous bank. If you're sitting in a Chase Bank and you're the teller, you probably don't even know who the owner of Chase Bank is, like the CEO or whatever. So you're just doing a job in the canopy of Case, I guess. I don't really know. But what I'm trying to get at is you don't see the guy operating Chase. You don't see his agendas. You don't see what their goal is. You don't see how they're doing it. They're doing it.
Yep.
But they're just going to tell you, oh, there's a coin shortage. Just don't give off any coins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what does that mean? He's got a completely different agenda.
Mm-hmm.
You've never met the guy, but he has a completely different agenda. He has something. And to me, that's how the government is. It doesn't matter who's in office, who's in any position. There's an agenda that we don't know about that they can just go off and say whatever the crap they want. And most people are going to skim right over this. I'm totally unaware to all of this. And, well, not the jet stuff, but just diving into it more. This, I didn't even know about that.
Right.
But it's just because they just have it so where, the government is whatever. And then
so much of the government kind of has a say in the media, right?
Well, yeah.
And what's put out. I mean, even look at during COVID, right? There's reports now that the government was having a say as far as, controlling what was being put out on Facebook as far as misinformation, right? Or disinformation, whatever you want to call it. And the government had a say. So even if you questioned anything, you couldn't put it out there and just be like, look, is anyone asking questions about this? Have you seen this report?
Yep.
Hey, I'm concerned about your health and safety. Just look and read into this. And the government's going, no, we don't want that. It's like, that's what they did in Nazi Germany, right? That's what they do in communist China, in North Korea, right? During, the USSR, right? Soviets. They controlled the news and the media and said, this is what can be. And if you go against it, in a worst case scenario, we will arrest you, right?
Yep. So it's that sense of, we're here for you until we have something that we're basically going to cram down your throat.
Yeah.
And because we've helped you for so long, just shut up and listen. And just do what we're telling you to do. And yeah, the biggest lie is, we're the government, we're here to help you. It's not the case. It's the government is people that come together and try to have a say in what's going on. So it's not like the government this is why we the people should have a say in who's going into it. We don't anymore. But that's the whole point. And so it's like, some people group, will just say the elites, are trying to push their incentives for their gain, not yours. Just like you brought up, where it's just like, oh, they're raising the overtime pay or whatever. It's like, oh, that's awesome. I'm going to get more money.
Yeah.
Well, what does that give the government? More money, because you're going to get taxed more.
Yep.
So it's not, we're helping you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's stupid, annoying, and everything else under the sun. Let's see, next thing I got here. So I just heard this on NPR, right? So out of Minnesota, there's a St. Cloud hospital where there was a group of nurses that got together, and they published a book called Just Breathe, right? And it's about their experience in the hospital during COVID, right? And I'm not going to go super into it. I just wanted to read this one entry, get your reaction, right? And so this is an entry in the book from one of the people. It says, I did not sign up to be in a war, and yet I found myself drafted into the worst type of battle I could imagine. I will forever remember the faces of the people who looked at me for the last time before they became silent. And so, like, your reaction to that, just because I'll give you my reaction to that.
Okay, well, first off, for me, I think it's insane that they talk of war.
Right.
Because if you are in the medical field, I am so sorry. Because this was just outrageous.
Right.
In what you guys had to go through for what? Nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. And your lives had to completely go from 0 to 100. No pay increase whatsoever.
Yeah.
Literally enslaved or drafted into this position.
No. But I also
by force.
Am blown away at the fact of, like, we found that ventilators were literally killing people, right? They pushed for ventilators, and that ended up killing people. I mean, it was just, the whole thing was chaos. But what pisses me off the most, like, if you've served, thank you for your service that way, because I've never served, and I know Malachi hasn't either, but
nope.
But, like, for them to say, I was drafted in to a war, it was the worst type of battle. Like, me and Sawyer were saying when we heard this, we're like, are you kidding me? So you're comparing watching someone die, right? Like, possibly, and in a lot of cases, not a lot of cases, that's not true. In some cases, because we already disproved that the numbers were highly inflated, right? And it was already people who were, arguably terminally ill that were dying, right? Because they already had cancer or other issues. But you're comparing that to, let's say, like me and him were saying, right, that's comparable to walking down a street in Afghanistan with your buddy out in front, or your sergeant leading your platoon, an explosion goes off, and now Jim Bob is nowhere to be seen, but you found a random piece of cloth and a hand on the ground, and Hank over on the other side is missing both his legs, screaming. You're right. It is exactly the same. Like, we put it on an even playing field. Much less, you're trying to get to him to help him, but there's bullets coming out of nowhere, and you're just shooting back at nothing because you can't figure out where the gunfire is coming from.
Mm.
But again, same playing field. Like, and then like the whole like during all of COVID, and they're like, these are our heroes. Not saying doctors and nurses, but teachers. Gotta be kidding me. Teachers were our heroes. They were sitting at home doing virtual learning.
Yep.
Right? In my line of work and in your line of work, we were out there working. So if this was the worse than the Black Plague, right?
We were
worse
vulnerable.
than smallpox, whatever it was, we were directly in contact with people daily.
Mm-hmm.
But we weren't considered heroes. They never called us a hero.
The essential workers.
Right.
Yeah.
We were an essential worker. That was the highest title we got. But we did not get a hero title.
And we were only essential workers so that we could continue building homes and keeping the lights on and keeping
Make sure
your
your
toilets
toilet flush. I was fixing phones at that time, so you're welcome to all you bums that keep, we're getting money from the government, buying your phones and then smashing them. So.
We've all been to school, and we've all had the teacher-student relationship. And I know that, from the teacher's point of view, having 10 to 25 kids in their class,
mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be a lot easier to just talk to someone here, and if they want to black out their screen, if they want to sleep while you're talking to them, if they want to whatever, doesn't matter. Because I'm just going to continue doctoring you, government's good, and they're just going to do whatever the crap they want. It's like, okay, you're the hero. Good job. That's
it's
freaking stupid.
Yeah. So anyway, I just heard that book, and I had to throw it out there for anyone else that thought that, I mean, again, if you served and you heard that, what would you I would just be curious on their reaction, be like, hey, how? So if you have served and you're hearing that, and I want to know specifically, especially if you've been served in battle, right? Like that's really because they're comparing it to battle, right? So if you served and been overseas, I would love that comparison and be like, is that on an even playing field, as this nurse describes, or are you infuriated at the fact that?
For me, looking back, the majority of people can see that COVID is fake. What they were pushing wasn't real. And cramming this whole agenda down our throats, and then
COVID
looking back
wasn't real
now,
in the fact of it wasn't taking the lives. It was a cold.
Yes,
it was a cold.
Yes.
I think all of us had it. We're like, yeah, it sucked.
Yep.
But I was never laying there going, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
It sucked. But I never once was like, man, this is it. This is the end.
Yep. So, with that, and yes, it is in itself real, but the death rates, it's like, I get T-boned. I didn't die because of COVID. I died because I got T-boned in a car.
Right.
So, you live that rush of a life from a doctor, nurse perspective, and then you get to hear now that it was a hoax.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that you were
but
just
you were
part of the whole game.
forced to be pushing this on people and doing this and fighting this, and even the people that were just like, no, I don't want this, get away from me. They're like, no, you have to, all this kind of stuff. Now look at it. Now look at the situation. If you're going to be in the medical field, you need to be doing your research and not just like, poof, something came up. We have no way of researching this or doing diligence on this at all whatsoever. Let's just jump into it.
Right. Well, I've heard of people going down the road of vaccines is an entirely different. That would probably be part of conspiracy hour going into all of that information, but just the fact that I've heard of people talk about when they're going through medical school, right? How you're not allowed to question some of the whole narrative there, right? Especially when it comes into especially when it comes into vaccination stuff, and you're like, hey, I have questions on this, and you're like, not allowed, right? Like there was, I mean, my wife knows someone directly who is going through and is doing. She's working to become a midwife, right? And she does school online, and then she's doing hands-on stuff, right? And that schooling is different. But there was an entire deal with her online classes that she needs in order to show to the state that she's met the requirements for like the certain medical side of it, right? And she was sitting there and listening to it, and she does not believe in vaccination, but she's like, it's so hard because if I want to get this, get certified or have this stuff, I have to go along with it, because if I question it or fight against it in any way, I will not get to do it. Which when she's a midwife, she's not going to be involved in the vaccination stuff or be involved in certain practices at all because she's a midwife. Right? She's like, that's not even in my field. But in order to get this licensing and certifications to become a midwife, I have to take these courses so that it's like, okay, I completed these courses to get this certificate, which is kind of crazy in the same way. It was like when I went in for a CDL when I worked at the lumberyard, and I get in there and I go to take my written test, and they give me an air brakes deal, right? And because there's different classes in a CDL. And I was going to be testing on, as far as driving goes, behind the wheel, on non-air braked vehicles. There was no air brakes on our vehicles, and it was very clear that that's what I was applying for, was a non-air braked vehicle to test on. But I had to do the written test on air braked vehicles. I'm like, why? Why is this a test that is required when I am going to be getting licensed? So I mean, because it would be different if it was like, well, I know you're not going to drive it at work, but our CDL that you're going to get is going to be for both air brake and non-air braked, right? Make sense. But it's not. It was the one class below where it was a CDL allowing me to drive commercial vehicles only if they did not have air brakes, right? If I'd have been pulled over for something and I had an air brake vehicle, then I would have been heavily fined, right? For that, right? So that would have been taking my own chances on it, right? But I'm like, why is that? And so they do the same thing in the medical field, and what's just crazy in college as a whole, that they're like, I know you're not going to do any of this remotely, right? But it's required. And you're like, I don't understand. And it's really just a money ploy.
But to go, yes, this is what most, especially universities, are. Some trade schools as well. But even down to the just exams and testings for CDL stuff, So, yes, it's always this push and this agenda to push more on you so they can charge more, kind of thing. So, like, for me, when I was in school, I went to carpentry school for 2 years, and a lot of the time the teacher was just like, so we have to teach you this, but this isn't what's really going on in the real world.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just like, so why are you teaching it? I mean, the books, they basically looked like and read like they came out of, like, 1980.
Right.
And they just kept with the same curriculum, and that's just what they're running with.
Yeah.
But it's like, so we have to teach you this, but I had a phenomenal teacher. I'm not trying to bash him, but he would point out the fact that it's just like, if you get into the real world, it's not like this. So he would teach it and then explain what it's like in the real world. So thank you to that teacher. He's amazing. But why are you putting it in there anyway? And so, like, what he's getting at specifically with CDL stuff, I have my Class A. You have a Class D license. That just means you can drive a vehicle standard.
Yep.
Car.
This is to the state of Minnesota.
Yep.
That we're talking about. Right?
Well, it does carry. Most CDL does carry.
Well, nationally.
Yeah.
Arguably, yeah.
But anyway, so just to get an idea, Class C is any vehicle that's driving for commerce or commercial that isn't using airbags. Class B is that same style, but with airbags. Class A is your tractor, trailer combination of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a whole bunch of different avenues beyond that. So, yes, like what he's trying to get at is if he was going to learn airbags, basically you learned a Class B license, but he only got a Class C license for it.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, what is the point of a Class C and a Class B then? Because that's literally the difference is airbags.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's why I was so infuriated with it, because I could pass the other test.
Yep.
But I had to go, I think I had to retake the airbag test like two or three times. Because there was just...
Because you weren't even thinking about it.
I hadn't studied for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I was like, oh yeah, this is an entire airbag section. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Right? And then we didn't even have stuff for me to go out and practice on or like understand what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Because again, I wasn't driving airbag material.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. What am I supposed to be, what are we talking about here?
Yeah. So this is a good example of universities. In your first 2 years is
generals.
Your generals. Isn't that high school?
Yeah. Right, but it's 2 years that this university gets to bleed anywhere from, depending on where you're going, $30,000 to $60,000 a year out of you. Like how are people not pissed off about the fact that you go there and you're like, why am I learning information that I should have learned in high school? Because I think that's, in all honesty, like you go way back to what universities were. You went there when you went to the university. You didn't learn that stuff. That stuff was covered in high school. When you got to university, if it was like, I'm going in to be a math teacher, right? Awesome. We're going into hardcore math stuff. That's the direction you're going. Be like, I'm here to be a nurse or a doctor. All right, great. Let's send you down the medical route. Because everything else should have been covered and taken care of by the time you reach that point. Right? Universities could like shorten up the time that kids are there by 2 to 3 years simply by being like, yeah, everything, these are the requirements we meet, but if you are pursuing a field in this, then you will have to take that.
Think of how many fewer dropouts we would have in universities if they got right into what they supposedly were wanting to go into.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be a doctor. That's my major. And then you think of how many times people change their major in that first 2 years.
Yeah.
Because they're not learning what they went to go learn.
Right? Or they're just like, I think not learning what they went to go learn. It's like, I already struggled, like, because there's, like, for me, I am not a math person. Like, I'm stupid when it comes to math, okay? I mean, I can do basic things, but beyond that, I'll be like, I don't know, and, like,
I
also don't care, because, like, in my field, I don't need to know all this crazy math stuff all the time, and so, like, right, more in the sense of if I was going to a school, right, to being like, I want to learn, like, this is my passion. Like, let's just say, right, one of my big passions used to be fitness. So, like, hey, I want to go to be
physical trainer.
Yeah, physical fitness, fitness science, whatever they call it, or a phy ed teacher, right? I don't know why I would do that, but anyway, right? But like, you get there and they're like, oh, well, you got to do your generals. You got 2 more years of math and trigonometry or whatever. I'd have been like, yeah, I'm done. I can't. I barely got through high school trying to figure this stuff out because my brain just works differently than everyone else's. I barely got through high school on math, and now I got to do 2 more years of it. And I start, now my grades are failing, and I can't get into the program I want because, like, well, you're failing in these grades, so.
And
So
so,
then-
you
so then
paid
people
for
are
all of
dropping
that.
out
You
because-
paid for all of that, and you just walk away.
Right.
So many people I know go to college and they just walk away.
Yeah.
But they still have the debt.
But like I said, I think people drop out because they're like, I thought it was going to be different. I
Mhm.
thought I was going to go there and I was going to learn the field that I wanted to go into,
Yep.
and now I'm in a field or I'm learning things that I did not plan on or want to spend my time on.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, you were forced into high school or into the normal school, and then you go pay for college to be what you want to learn.
Yes.
But then
But
you're
then
actually paid for
then
2
you're-
years of
Yeah, but you're forced to
school.
learn something that you're like, I thought I covered this.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway,
Fun little
Stupid.
rant on that, I guess.
yeah.
You know, I was going to say you wouldn't last as being a Phi Ed teacher because they would convict you of indoctrinating
Probably
students
for
on the
giving
PE.
them, helping them to think outside the box.
You're like, all right, kids, CrossFit.
Right. Yeah.
How dare you bring that cult into our school?
Functional movements.
Yeah.
So-
We really believe in weights.
Let's. I had a whole nother segment there, but based on time, do you want to do your conspiracy hour, or what are you thinking?
I have something very small, but
Let's go ahead and jump
We
into
can-
yours then.
okay.
'Cause
So,
mine could very easily take a long time. So
it's always fun with these talk shows is they don't have to be like on point. The biggest thing that Skylar and I are wanting to achieve in this is we like to communicate and talk. Again, our wives are just like, you guys just need to record yourselves because we're just talking about randomness.
Mhm.
But we want to be able to reach a community and answer questions and do research for you. So we were talking off camera. It's like if we can narrow it down to 30 minutes, maybe an hour at the most show, now you have just this nice little commute listen to. It's something short, sweet. We're just giving information and giving you resources to just do your own research. So it's something that we find enjoyable,
Mhm.
but for you guys to actually start learning something from it.
Yep.
All right,
So
jumping
we're gonna go to
into
conspiracy hour.
conspiracy hour.
We did say one thing we will try to keep is man minute, especially if we're going into conspiracy hour. We would have had a man minute segment, but I forgot a manly thing today. So
Question, just looking at this. I know people that are very finicky about pens.
yeah.
Do you have like a pet peeve? Like, I like ballpoint. I like
Oh,
whatever.
I
like
don't. I don't
the
care.
certain.
I don't care what end pops out for me to write with, unless the only time I do is if I'm writing a check. And you know they got those double backed ones where when you
Oh.
sign it, you write and it's supposed to impressionate.
Yep.
Impress. I don't know, whatever you call it.
Yep.
On the back one, if you don't have a ballpoint one, it doesn't do it. So if you didn't know that, if you're like, oh, I looked through it, I was like, oh, I thought I wrote a bunch of checks. But no,
Whoops.
because I did that once. I was like, oh man, like, duh, of course I'm not pushing.
Yeah, true.
no.
Because if you push too hard on ballpoint.
My only thing is like, I don't mind if I have this. Like, let's say when I was at Bible college, like this was one thing. I found I could not have this because I would sit there and I'd be like, in the whole class, like, I would be like,
ADHD.
I'd be like sitting there, yeah, like, man, what is that annoying noise? Oh.
The life of homeschool.
Right. Yeah, because when you're homeschooled, you can,
Yeah,
you know,
you don't think
there's
anything
no
of
one
it.
around. It's just your siblings, and if it's annoying, they'll be like, "Oh, that sucks," you know.
Like,
oh, does
well,
this bother you?
You're the oldest one, so you're just
Right.
like, oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I was, yeah, but usually, yeah. So all of a sudden, you're sitting in the class of like, you know, a couple of classes I have are like, 100 some people
Yeah.
or whatever, and you're sitting there, you're like, God dang, what is that?
Who's this annoying guy?
Oh.
Everyone's looking at you.
I would be like, don't hold the pen. And so I had to go get some, just some of these
Generic.
because I would just sit there and click it a whole bunch. So I had to go get some generics because then if I'm fidgeting with this thing, even if it makes that noise.
Well,
a little
I'll take it and I'll press up.
yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
I just
Yeah.
yep.
So
Different
that's
ways.
kind of the agenda of Man Minute. Is
Yeah,
we just- we
man,
want-
minute. What pen do you like?
Yeah.
Can you not hold a pen at all?
Because I've got a pastor friend that is like down to the point, like a 0.7, and like I won't use a 0.5. And
yeah,
like,
that's the ball, like the ball head size.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, I can see a difference, and some write well, some, and then I'm just like, I only like to write in pencil because I like to erase my mistakes and rewrite it. So if I have pen, you end up writing like, oh, that's spelled wrong. I'm going to scribble that, and then wait, no, now I have to rewrite it.
Right.
Homeschool, whatever. But yeah, man minute.
There you go, man minute. What pen do you like?
Yep. So what I have for us is on 9/11, since we just went past that.
Well, it's the month of 9/11 and all the other terrible things that came out of it, besides a proxy war in Afghanistan and Iraq for ever.
Is it even over? Like, is it really over?
Technically, we're still in Iraq, but technically, we outfitted. I mean, we gave the Taliban some really nice stuff.
Yeah,
I'm not allowed to own. I'm not allowed to own certain fun switches on guns, but we can give it to some of the worst people on earth.
I was talking to some people, and it was just one of those like, should we fly over there? Like, spend the money to get the crates and the equipment to haul
pallets of cash,
haul stuff back.
Literally, pallets of money.
That's because our money is worthless.
What?
We had that had to have been a bribe.
It wasn't
to something.
Quite. We're not quite at the point yet of like what it was in Berlin, where like you could, after the fall of Nazi Germany, where they would like you could like wheelbarrow,
use it as toilet paper.
Yeah, I mean, literally, they would use it as like for starting fires.
Yep.
Because it was
worthless.
Cheaper. It was cheaper to use that as firewood than it was to go buy paper or like buy firewood.
Yeah.
Like, so anyway, but at the time, I would have very happily taken a pallet of cash because I could have used it very quickly.
Yep. Okay, so 9/11. I will bring up a fun video for you guys.
Whoop, whoop.
On the morning of.
Oh,
sorry.
They can't see it, Malachi.
It's a very fast.
Yeah, it's a quick video.
It's just under 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah, what's it called?
It is called.
Like if someone wants to go look it up.
Here I had it here.
Oh, here. You do. You do your thing. I'll pull it up here. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's 9/11 conspiracy theory explained in 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
So
at normal speed. If you want to speed it up a little, you can. But he talks fast.
Yeah, I am. I gotta find my mouse. There we go. I am running through timestamps.
Oh, right on. Okay. So
now,
we're going to speed it up.
Yes, I am going to speed it up. We don't have to go through all of it. You guys can look it up, listen to it. Again, it's super crazy fast. But I just wanted to kind of pinpoint some things out of it so you can kind of see like what they're talking about, and then you guys can do the rest from there. So I guess I'll just play this first bit. Talking about the most heavily defensed airspace. So we'll just play it here.
2001. 19 men armed with box cutters, directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world, using a satellite phone and a laptop, directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world, overpowering the passengers and the military combat-trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor.
Why?
Yeah.
Just that alone. So, looking into it, the most heavily defensed air defense is the United States.
Yep.
And yet, hours, and we couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, I went on to... Let me pull this up here. So the U.S. Department of Defense, 8 things you may not know about our air defense on 9/11. So it's specifically on 9/11. Going back. So I have them laid out here, 1 through 8. The first one was there was a lot of initial confusion. And so what they're saying is it's the difference of you're being, when you're in deployment, constantly training.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be random times where it's just like, boom, get up, there's an emergency, go, go, go. What are you doing? Because that's enacting in whatever that word is, what you're learning. So like with you, we do shooting practice with you. And so you're wanting to kind of push because you're learning the basics mainly for our wives in how to hold them, gun safety, shooting straight, all this kind of stuff. But you want to push the stress.
Yep.
And why would you push stress on someone?
Oh, because we want to get the natural body's reaction to how, one, what does my body naturally do, right? And what should it do? Yeah. How can I train it so that and be like, okay, the way that I performed, and the way I did this when this happened was poor. Yeah. I need to work so that if this is the situation, this is my reaction as compared to the previous reaction. To better myself.
So, and the reason why that is if you are a gun owner and you've never shot your gun, you just bought it because the world was ending and your friends were buying guns. In the situation where you feel like you might be a hero or you might want to defend yourself, you might not find the safety. You might not even know how to load it correctly. What if it gets jammed? Situations like this. So you have to practice and then put yourself in stressful situations to see if it's a reaction and if it's you're taking time to think, so you're missing the agenda kind of thing. So the Army's doing this. In their initial confusion, it was, is this a test or is this real? Because this is what they go with. So that was number one. Number two is there wasn't much time between the first FAA call and the first crash. So going into that, it talks about, according to the 9/11 Commission's report, the call from the FAA's Boston Center came into Needs at 8:37 a.m. 8:46 is when I scrambled the first fighters, and then 8:53 they were airborne, Powell said. But it was too late to help American 11, which hit the World Trade Center North Tower at 8:47 a.m. So obviously the call came in 8:37. They got the planes airborne at 8:53, according to this, but at 8:47 is when the first plane hit. So they're about 10 minutes too late in being airborne, not even to the destination. So stick with me there. We'll go to 3. There were several more reports of hijackings that day. So they were trying to figure out which planes were the targeted plane. So there was 4 hijacks, but they're saying there were more than just those 4. So they were confused. Like, how often are there hijacked planes? Or were there multiple hijacked planes and they only talked on 4 and didn't talk about the other ones? So I was just like, I'm always a little confused on that. I'm like, okay, so no one else got to hear about all these hijacked planes, but then in your report, there's all these hijacked planes?
Yeah.
So that's just reading this, which is coming from our own defense report. I'm just like, what are you talking about? This is what I want to get into. I got to find that where they talk about the time frame. Oh, okay, sorry. I missed it. So in the first section where it talks about there was a lot of initial confusion, Powell said, who is the same person that said that they got them airborne from the time they got the call, which was 8:37, to the time they got them airborne, which was 8:53 a.m. This is not even 20 minutes later. Previously, he said, I stayed on the phone for 12 to 14 hours just calling all the bases and asking how quick the fighters could get armed, get airborne, and if they could go to a certain location. So, was this at 8:37 when you got the first phone call? You picked up the phone, and 12 to 14 hours later? I mean, to me, this is
like when you read it, it's confusing. You're like, so is he saying, he'd already made those calls, got them airborne, or was he like, did he stay on for all the rest of 9/11 that day
to get
to confirm with more bases if they're saying, oh, there's potentially more hijackings, right?
Yep.
So it's like,
okay,
what exactly are you talking about here? Because your story doesn't, just from reading that, when you read it, you're like, what are you saying with this?
Yeah. So this is the thing. I stayed on the phone for 12 to 14 hours just calling all the bases and asking how quick the fighters could get armed, get airborne, and if they could go to a certain location, Powell said. 8:46 is when I scrambled the first fighters, and then 8:53 they were airborne, Powell said. The same person is saying this, and yet it's 12 to 14 hour difference versus a 20-minute difference.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
I'm confused, and because of that, and hearing what they are saying about this is why I just red flags, major red flags. The other thing, this was I highlighted. So number 2 and number 4 were the biggest ones. Number 4 is there had been discussions of fighter pilots making the ultimate sacrifice.
No.
So if I go over here, this is a short one. The fighters were meant only to shadow potentially hijacked planes, but Rountree, that's the last name, said there was discussion of those pilots making the ultimate sacrifice. What is an ultimate sacrifice, guys?
Well, I would assume, if you're looking at biblically, be giving up your life.
Yeah, death.
Right.
The ultimate sacrifice. The biggest thing that you can give for someone else is your life. In case their weapons were out, did they shoot any missiles or anything?
I would assume that.
I didn't hear any reports of it. So in case their weapons were out, and if we would have had to use force, there were discussions whether or not those guys would have to go kamikaze. What is kamikaze?
Well, from a World War II standpoint, you crash your plane.
She said, meaning some pilots were considering risking their own lives by using their planes to stop hijacking jetliners. It was scary when you thought about the possibility of them having to do that. This brings me back to the very beginning, spending 12 to 14 hours asking fighter planes to get armed and get airborne. What are our planes doing on the ground?
Yeah.
What is it that you're doing in the Air Force when you're scrubbing the bathroom with your toothbrush and going to maintain your plane?
Yeah.
Isn't it to check to make sure that every single bolt is glimmering, shining, polished on your plane and your bullets are in there?
I know, there's two things I have with it. One, just from listening to a lot of gunfighters podcasts, or military guys, and they talk about if we're gonna have a range day, he's like, the amount of work it takes just to have a range day in the Army is outrageous, or Marines, or whatever force on force they are in, and they're like, You go. He's like, it takes like weeks just to get set up for a 4-hour range day. He's like, you got to get the weapons, on the locker that are, from the locker that are approved to be, the exact amount of weapons that are needed, the ammo, all this stuff. Then when it shows up, you need an exact specific count of how much ammo has been delivered and and then used and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, wow, what a process. And I get it because it's like, hey, we want to make sure everything's accounted for, but at the same time, they'll go down the road in North Dakota and lose a grenade box off the side of the truck. But anyway, beyond the point. I'm also like, with the our history as a nation of combat readiness and military fighting power, you would think that, and I mean, I would assume that they do, but because of what this is, they're like, oh, we were really ready. You would think that when a certain call goes out, that it's like real deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like around here. I guess it's apparently kind of only a Midwest thing where they do the every Wednesday they do at least during the summer they do the first, well, not every Wednesday, first Wednesday of every month.
Yeah.
They do the tornado siren.
Yep.
Right. So they'll do a tornado siren test for all. I don't know how big the area is that it covers, but I know for our county and surrounding counties, they do a tornado siren test first Wednesday of every single month, even in the dead of winter, right? And so you'll hear it go off, right? So you would think that when you're in the military, there's a certain alarm that goes off. They're like, oh, this is a drill. They make it sound very realistic, but I know it's a drill. And then there would be like that thing, like when this alarm goes off, then things are going down.
Yeah.
This is what we've trained for. That's why we've been playing with the fake alarm, because when this alarm goes off, it's crap hit the fan.
Well, it's seriously, when we hear that alarm off outside of, we're just like, whoa.
Oh,
what is this?
What day is it?
But then we'll get a notice. Hey, we were testing something. But it puts us on alert.
Yeah.
It's or even though
when the weather's actually bad, you'll hear the siren.
Yep.
And then you get like a ding ding, and everyone's phone's dinging because you're like, oh, tornado spotted in this area. And you're like, oh, I mean, we haven't. Last year was really weird for a lot of tornadoes, but anyway, beyond the point.
Yeah. So it's just it's the fact that we're pushing that initiative to be ready, and then when we have to be ready, we're just like, grab the missiles. We have to load the planes.
Yeah.
Get your ammo. We have
we're not ready.
Yeah.
The plane took off before we got the missiles on. Be like, what?
Yeah. And like, you can't tell me that there wasn't a close enough Air Force base.
Yeah.
It's just
none of it makes sense.
Yeah. So just for time's sake, we're going to kind of wrap it up here. We do still have our normal jobs because YouTube isn't paying.
We're not getting paid to do this.
Yeah. Way through. But I will try to remember to put the link of this video in the description. I guess we could try to put most of the links in just for you guys so you don't have to research too much. But this is just one part of the video. And yes, conspiracy theory, you can't get too crazy with it. But just reading this little bit in this, we didn't even touch. We're 23 seconds into this.
Yeah.
And he's just spitting out. Yeah, just boom, 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 boom. So, yeah, just look into it.
If I could argue two things, well, maybe three, really quick. So, if you want to do some research, number one, so they, if you've ever watched the first Daniel Craig 007 movie, Casino Royale, there's a scene in there where this guy tries to blow up a plane. And in doing so, the whole idea is they wanted to short the guy that was behind, the mastermind behind trying to blow up this plane that Daniel Craig stops, was to short stock that plane's or that company's stocks. On 9/11, American Airlines, and it was American Airlines and the other one, I forget what other one was, They were short-stocked when these planes crashed into the trade towers, right? And you can look this up. They were short-stocked because after 9/11, those airline companies, their stocks tanked because of the tower hit. So you're like, what in the world? The only way that these people would have made millions and millions of dollars is if they knew that this crash was going to happen. What's interesting in that is that it's short stocked, right? And they did an investigation into it. They could not, in the investigation, a lot of the money went to these overseas accounts, and they could not. They found no. They're like, it's nothing. Like, everything seems to be legit. It just seems to be a coincidence that they happen to do this. Well, once it gets into overseas accounts, a lot of times they're like, well, it's really untrackable now because we don't know who's, once it's out of the U.S. stuff, is what they claim. So first there's that. You can literally look that up, and that was there. They say that the black box for those planes was completely incinerated, right? Yet the burning point for a black box is supposed to survive 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for an hour, and they say the towers burn between 14 to 1,800 degrees. Maybe, I mean, I don't know.
No, but the government said they burned at 2,000.
Yes, but then, so like a private company or when you Google it,
private investigator,
the first thing that pops up is it burned between 14 to 1,800 degrees. And then the government comes out and says, oh, no, it burned at 2,100 degrees, right? So, again, it's just like someone who's pushing, like, we need you to stay on what we're saying here. But then the government also says that somehow a hijacker's passport managed to remain unscathed, and they found it on the ground.
A couple blocks away.
And he says this on here, on this video. And you're like, what?
I will find it here for you. What was it? 108.
The evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap. That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site. If you can believe that.
Yeah, if you can believe that.
If you can believe that.
Like, what?
I always think, I was just like, I'm the terrorist in the plane. Just like, woohoo, I'm flying to go destroy lives. So, no joke aside with that. I'm really sorry if you lost people in this. But I'm just thinking, like, dude, like, oh, crap, my passport. What did I do? Like, you gotta do something.
Throw it out the window.
Here. Boom, throw it out the window.
Yeah, it's just stupid.
I'm just like, okay.
I mean, when you just look at that as a whole, you're like, that doesn't even make sense. Oh, then I looked up, and they claim that part of why the whole reason for the black box being destroyed would have been because of how hot jet fuel burns. If you go look up jet fuel, right, jet fuel burns at 1,500 degrees. That's why they're designed to survive up to 2,000 degrees, right? Because it's like, well, yeah, why would they make a box that is able to be completely destroyed by jet fuel?
Yes.
Yep. So,
if you're not aware of what the black box is, it carries all of the information that the plane had. The communication, the travel, the time it lifted off, like everything, so that in a case of an emergency or where did the plane go or
I wonder if
whatever.
the F-35 had a black box.
No, why would they do that? Yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah.
I was just trying to see here. So the release date of Lilo and Stitch was June 16, 2002, and there's a scene here that they changed where the plane was originally going to be flying through the town of Hawaii or whatever, but ended up flying through like the mountain region. So they kept all of the forms of everything. So it's, if you continue through this, it's flying through, instead of the town, which that's a horrible picture.
Right.
Instead of flying through the town at that angle, it's flying through the mountains.
And they made it a spaceship.
You know, these used to be towers, but they just turned it into mountains.
Yeah.
This was a plane, but now they turned it into a spaceship, all this kind of stuff. Now, was that for the lives, you know, the people that lost their family members and all that kind of stuff, PTSD? Could be.
Yeah.
But I just...
Or was it that they knew ahead of time?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those they could have been predicting, because it doesn't take a year to make a movie.
Usually not.
I mean, it yeah.
I mean, it can. It just depends. But again, I just talked about a movie and how, you know, I mean, that's a whole nother rabbit trail. How Hollywood and the CIA uses Hollywood to tease us with stuff. But that's an entirely separate rabbit trail you can go down.
Yeah, just from what I'm learning in like the difference between lawful and legal, you have the police department and courts and all this kind of stuff. It's putting it on TV to tell you this is what to do.
Yep.
But when you actually look into the difference between, again, legal and lawful, they're two different things. Look it up. You start to see, I don't really see much, you know, legal in my shows. I'm seeing lawful. It's the law. But anyway, we need to wrap it up.
We do. We got to get going.
We appreciate you guys just kind of sticking through. Again, we'll kind of find our little niche thing as we go. But
niche, what do they call it?
Yeah, I think we'll have to do an episode on it. Is it niche or niche?
Yeah, it could be an entire topic.
Yeah, we're going to try to be as relatable as we can. And again, just giving information that you can find yourself without having to sit in a basement on your computers looking it up.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right.
Mm-hmm.
That is episode 4.
So 4. We'll see you on episode 5.
Sounds good. Thanks. See ya.